When was the last time you had a conversation with somebody that you walked away from just feeling really good about that conversation? That conversation probably included questions being asked to you. They weren't interrupting you when you were asking those questions or answering, and they were really listening, and they weren't distracted at all, giving you 100% of their attention. We all were taught to listen at one point in our lives, whether it was by our parents, to listen to our authority figures at school, but none of us are really taught, given a class, to really learn to listen unless you're going into something like counseling and specifically seek out for those classes. 10 years ago, I attended a class with the Direct Selling World Alliance on business coaching. I wanted to begin a business coach, certified business coach with the DSWA. A few years after I went to that first class, I began teaching those classes for them, specifically because I love the way that they taught people to learn to listen. When I first heard that concept of listening not to respond, but listening to really hear, a light bulb went off on me in my head that I was really not a very good listener. And so I really wanted to focus on that part. But we all have conversations, so listening is something that is important for all of us to really learn how to do. So today I'm going to explain why it's important to be a good listener, how to apply those skills to be a good listener, and the benefits of being a good listener. So we're going to start with why it is important. Think about the last conversation you had with somebody that really wasn't paying attention. I had a conversation with somebody recently, and the entire time we were having that conversation, they were looking at their phone, very, very distracted, and really just kind of didn't acknowledge really what I was saying. And I walked away from that conversation really put off by it. And it really made me understand even more the importance of being a good listener. When you listen to somebody or not listen to somebody, it really gives them the impression of how you feel about them. And when you're not listening to them, they feel like you don't care. So Blake Bose talked about the importance of being attentive. He talks about in his article that he wrote, it's important to put down your phone, turn off your monitor if you need to, look at that person, make eye contact with them, and let them feel important. Let them know that you care about what they have to say. In another article, Are You Really Listening, in the Harvard Business Review, this author of this article specifically talks about how he went into a management position. When he was in that management position, he went in and really just wanted to show his authority. He didn't want people to walk all over him. And one of the things that he did is he would interrupt people when they were talking to him, and he wouldn't listen really to what he said. And he realized that his employees stopped listening to him altogether. And so what he realized is that when he would stop, slow down, listen intently to what they said completely before answering, he slowly started to earn that respect back. And what he found was a lot of his employees thought he was arrogant before he started reapplying these listening techniques that he knew were important, but went into this job really not wanting to apply them. One thing that he noticed is that employees started to be better employees. Their production went up. So there's consequences when we aren't very good listeners, because we can cause contention in the workplace. They won't have any respect for you, and they lower their performance level. So now we know why it's important to be an active listener. How do we apply some of these principles, and what are some of these principles? Not only is it important to give them your 100% attention by getting rid of all those distractions, how you speak to them, your body language, and the way you respond to them are also very important. An article published in the International Journal of Listening, titled "Active Listening, Is It the Forgotten Dimension in Managerial Communication?" points out that listening is a two-sided phenomenon. The first side is what is the attitude that the listener is portraying. As you're listening to them, are they paying, as you're talking to someone, is that listener paying attention to you? The second skill is the technical skills of the listener. What's the body language? You know, when we're speaking, what's our voice inflection? How is our eye contact and that overall impression of how they're taking what you're saying in? Body language shows so much. When somebody that you're speaking to is agitated or uninterested, it doesn't really matter if they're listening 100%, because what they're portraying to you is that they don't care what you're saying, because it's that of what they're showing. So the first part to overcome, is to be aware. Once we are aware that we want to be a better listener, we can then slowly make those changes. We can be a good example to others so that they can understand how they feel when someone listens to them, and hopefully they in turn will apply those same skills to them. According to Lois Zachary and Lori Fisher in Student Affairs Today, there's 4 basic elements of listening. First, it's setting that stage for active listening. You know, make sure nothing is distracting you. The second thing is to pay attention to what that person says. Look them in the eye. The third thing is to clarify what they're saying to you. And the fourth thing is to acknowledge their feelings. So how can we do this? How can we clarify and acknowledge their feelings? If somebody said to you, I feel very frustrated about this situation, one of the ways that you can clarify it back to them is saying, I hear that you are very frustrated with this situation. It's very important not to change the word that they use. Use the word that they describe. If I would have said, I hear that you're very irritated at this situation, when they use the word frustrated, they're thinking in their mind, I'm not irritated, I'm frustrated. So make sure you acknowledge their feelings with the right words. Set yourself up for success. Put your phone away. Turn the notifications off if you need to turn the monitor off. Whatever it is, one of the things that I like to do to help me with active listening is I'll put my hand on my heart or hold my necklace to help remind me to listen to them, especially when it's brand new and you're really trying to focus and not let your mind wander to other things. Clarify what they said, what they meant when they acknowledge them. So when they said, I'm really hurting over this, I understand you're hurting over this, how can we help you here? So wanting to change, focus on one thing at a time. There's those 4 steps for that meaningful conversation that now we're aware of. We know that we talked about the active listening and with no distractions and the body language and how important that is. So what are the benefits to active listening? Brian Hunt wrote an article called Active Listening is the Key of Teens. He worked with a bunch of troubled teens, and what he determined is that when he would give those teens 100% of his attention, they in turn changed. Most people go through their lives and never have anyone really truly listen to them. Be that person that others want to talk to because they know you're going to be a good listener. Be a manager that is looked up to and respected. Build those strong relationships with others. You know, so much more can be said about this. This is just the top tip of the iceberg on how to be a good listener. So start slow, focus on the 4 elements. Since we talked about, we know we have to be the importance of being a good listener. We talked about how to be a good listener. We talked about the benefits to be a good listener. So now take that and apply it to your life. Annis Nin said this, we see the world not as it is, but as we are. Create a world where we're all good listeners. Be the person that everyone wants to talk to, not because of what they say, but because of how they feel when they walk away from that conversation.